Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
What's going on? I'm Arch Manning, Viore athlete and college quarterback. Whether I'm running, training, traveling, or just unwinding at home, I love doing it in my core shorts from Viore. With a breathable boxer brief liner, they're quick to dry, super versatile, and stand up to even my most intense training sessions. Plus, they come in 3 inseams and a ton of colors. Ready to try a pair? Go to viore.com/arch and get 20% off at checkout. I think you're going to love them as much as I do. That's VUORI.com/ARCH and get 20% off your first order. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Have a great day.
Hey, this is Stephen Rothberg. I am the founder of College Recruiter. We believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career and that it should be easy and efficient for employers to hire them. I am the co-host of the High Volume Hiring Podcast, which is where you're at. And welcome to episode 50. Welcome also to my co-host, Jeanette Leeds of AMS.
Hello, episode 50, big round number, milestone episode. I'm Jeanette Leeds with AMS. I'm the managing director and EVP of our high volume solution. If you don't know AMS, RPO, services, plus we throw in some tech and advisory and all kinds of stuff there. So so happy to be here with Parker. I was about to call you Paul Parker. I don't know why. It's crazy. And so really
you can call him anything you want. Just call him.
It's like the double P's, right? So Parker Pell, and really excited because we're talking one of my favorite parts of high volume, which is early careers, which is where I started my career. So Parker, why don't you introduce yourselves and we'll get into the meat of today's session.
Yeah. Thank you both again for the time in episode 50. Kind of feel special, I guess, but yeah, good to meet everyone. And I've gotten Peter Parker before, but never Paul Parker. So that's a new one.
Jeanette. You know what? I used to work with a Paul Parker a million years ago. So okay. Paul Parker, if you're on.
Yes.
Peter Parker's the one with the webs, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm getting that too many times now. But yeah, it's good to see everyone and chat with you both today. Parker Pell, one of the co-founders here at Abode. Abode, we help companies retain and engage early career talent. And so this topic today is kind of our bread and butter. So we're super excited, obviously, to be here and to dive into the conversation today.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to kick it off because literally I remember a million years ago when I worked at Lehman Brothers, which is, by the way, where Paul Parker I knew from. I just connected the dots. Renegs, college students and reneging on their internship and job offer. It was an issue 20 years ago. Still an issue now, 20 something years later. But the reasons may have changed. So tell us and our listeners, like, what are you seeing? Like,
yeah, I think it's super interesting because you bring up a good point. It's not something new in the space of early career, right? But think about March of 2020 and kind of how we've come from today in the landscape of campus recruiting. No one really knew what campus recruiting was going to mean 3 years ago when everything happened, right, in the world. And I think that level of not knowing also trickled into candidate sentiment around their careers for internships, for entry-level jobs. So campus recruiting professionals didn't know what was going on, and then students didn't know what was going on, right? And there was a lot of stories, obviously companies having to cut programs, and just like there was this mistrust gap that was almost just kind of like exacerbated, right, from both sides. And as we think about that mistrust and kind of what that ultimately came from, I think we see a few different things. One, I think it was generally a lack of connection. And I think that lack of connection was in people's personal lives, but then it also trickled into their careers. And when we think about Gen Z, and we'll dive into this a bit later, I think we like to think about and what we hear from the data and the reports that we run from early talent coming in. When they think about connection, it's almost more so connection with each other. and not as much
Hmm.
connection with the employer that they've accepted the job with. I mean, I think about when we started our company and I was a junior having my first internship, I didn't know a single person I was working with, and I was relocating to Dallas, Texas from Memphis, Tennessee. Like that's daunting, you know? And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you don't have that connection, and if there's not a place that the employer emphasizes that connection to like be bred and given that opportunity, I think that that lack of connection can sometimes lead to exploring other offers. I think that's one big one. And I'm not saying it's something new, but I think it's something that was heightened over the last 3 years. I think a second thing is generally means of communication. So what I mean by that is how has a generation of early talent in their personal lives consumed information at this point? And if you can see here, it's like it's on one thing, right? It's a one-stop shop. That's kind of the phrase that we like to use here. So now think about how employers traditionally have communicated with early talent in the hires that they're making when they're in school. Everyone knows in the campus recruiting landscape, most commonly, people are making a lot of offers in the fall,
Yeah.
and those candidates aren't starting until the summer when school ends. So you've
Mhm.
got this gap, and that gap is where communication needs to happen between the employer and the candidate, setting them up for success. Obviously, very different than lateral hiring. But how has that been happening up to this point? It's email and it's
Mhm. Yeah.
uh,
I mean, who's using their email, and how many emails do you have right now in your inbox right now?
and think about
Yeah.
the students who are using a college email that has a firewall
Yes.
that's coming from an employer that the college doesn't recognize or hasn't verified.
Hmm.
And maybe those emails are going to their spam. And it's not
Hmm.
even like a lack of intention, it's just a means issue. So I think that there's a lot of issues around communication. And I don't think the communication is what's being said. I think it's
Mhm.
how it's being said. And then more importantly, a lack of like how it's being tracked by the employer. So those are, I think, the two big things that we think about in terms of renegs and why there's been this kind of maybe elevated percentage. You can go into the percentages by industry across the board, what have you, that we obviously believe are fixable. But yeah, then I think that kind of roundabout Jeanette resonated.
Totally.
Cool.
So my understanding, and Parker, definitely correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that Abode sits kind of like in between the acceptance and the start date. It fills that gap of Parker, we're offering you a job. Yes, I accept. Fantastic. See you on June 1st. And then for forever, it's been kind of like you're saying, crickets, my word, not yours, in between. And I remember when I interned, I had kind of a somewhat similar experience to you. I was going to school in Minnesota, had a summer job in Phoenix, and there was like this 8-month gap in between the. Now, that company back then, one thing that they did is that they gave, I think there were 20 of us, they gave us like a conference line.
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
And it was ours. Nobody from the company was on it. And so we could arrange our own calls, which we did sporadically at the beginning and a whole lot the last couple weeks. Like, where are you living? You want a carpool, stuff like that. That's fine. But, for early careers, is that reneging issue, are you finding that's more right away, November, December? Is it closer to the start date? And what can employers do to reduce that?
Yeah, I think that what we see is there's two kind of troughs where a prominent portion of kind of reneges happen. One, the first 3 weeks of January. Why is that? I've accepted my internship offer in October. I just went back home, chatted with all my friends, heard about maybe internships that they had received or gotten in all these awesome opportunities at these different companies. And I'm kind of jealous and I want to check out those companies as well.
Buyer's remorse.
So yeah. So think about that right after holiday break, which we're coming up on. And then it is typically like the 2 to 3 week pre-summer time frame. That one I think is just because it's a couple weeks away and like they are actually realizing, holy cow, I'm about to relocate to this city and I have this job. Maybe I don't want to do that anymore. Or maybe I've already gotten another offer and I just haven't told my employer because I'm scared to tell them. Right. But I think those are the two main times where we see that happening. I think as it relates to how to combat it, I think one, and the data shows it, communicating at least one time per week. It's daunting. I understand that, right? Like, but how can you partner up with your marketing team, brand team, repurpose content in more digestible short form matters to have a weekly touch point? It's going to be too much for some candidates, but for some, it's not going to be enough. But that's okay, right? Because if you can communicate those weekly touch points in a way that's central, where it all lives in one place, you can kind of appease both ends of the spectrum in terms of Parker might be super anxious and like needs to chat with his employer every week, where Steven might just like not need that until a month before the start date.
Steven is very needy, but okay.
Me, I'm like, let's just talk once a month. We're good.
Yeah.
Jeanette's confident. And so.
Yeah. But I think that that's one really key avenue that I would just like really hit on is communication once per week. And that communication can be company specific, job specific, or it can just be like saying, hey, you need anything.
Love it. I think we have time for one last question. And you mentioned something earlier about Gen Z. And so I don't want to get into the battle of the generations, right? Being Gen X myself. But how are they, you seeing they're different than the previous generations, but also differences, but like we're all the same as well. So like maybe just share a little bit about that just from a communication standpoint as well, because to your point, if we're doing a lot of who's creating content and whatnot, so it all comes together.
Yeah, no. And I think that the clickbaity thing to say is there's huge differences, but I think that in practice, there aren't as vast of differences as people want to put off, but there's a bit of different, there's different structure that needs to be behind communicating with this generation from not just the recruiters being the primary source of contact. I think one key tenet to Gen Z retention that we talk about is transparency. And that transparency isn't just from the recruiter talking about salary, 30, 60, 90 day expectations. It's transparency from their future manager. A lot of these Gen Z haven't had a manager in the past, right? So if you think about, I'm anxious because I don't know what my manager is expecting of me. I took this role. I maybe don't know everything. What are they expecting of me to come in and know versus not know and can teach me? I think that that is something super key as people think about, and we talk about transparency, connection, and respect. Respect being, be respectful of how they work, understand how they communicate, or where there may be like opportunities for growth that they know of for themselves are. I think those are the things that we like to hit on as it relates to the differences in Gen Z communication, retention, and engagement. It's not differences in like core components of the employer future employee relationship, but I think it's taking it a step deeper in an understanding of how the generation has gone through school, their life in the last 3 to 5 years, and taking it a step further with more parties that are going to be involved in that candidate's journey with your company than just the recruiter who sent them an offer.
Cool. So much of early career hiring is high volume. You don't see that many companies hiring one intern or two, right? It tends to be dozens, sometimes hundreds. And so tools like Abode that make things more efficient for the employer, more effective for the candidate, love it. If we can reduce that reneg rate, that's just great for everybody involved. Parker, it has been a pleasure. I enjoyed being a guest of yours, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, on the internship show. And I'm glad that we were able to get you on with ours. So thank you, Jeanette. Any closing words?
I just want to say, you were talking about at the very end, the different parties, because we're talking about our careers. My head went to like a party. So I just wanted to.
I had a joke lined up, but enough.
That's where I'm just going to leave it. So it's not just all a party. There are parties involved. And I think this is awesome. I love hearing about all this stuff, because we think about so many years ago, same issues to your point, but different ways of just helping to solve it, and thinking about it. So it's great. Good stuff. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Cheers.
Awesome. Take care.